Welcome to Woo New, a show that explores healing and the expansion of our consciousness.
Where we explore all kinds of different energy modalities, therapies, and ideas that bring us closer to our collective liberation.
I'm Ellen, and I'm a journey work guide.
I'm Sam, and I am an integrative energy therapist.
And together, we are the co-creators of We Are All Daughters,
a quantum healing space dedicated to helping us reconnect to ourselves, our bodies, each other, and the universe.
It is my tremendous honor to welcome Kate Johnson here today with us. She is the creator and founder of Your Kush Coach. She is a cannabis guide, and she has this really incredible story that I cannot wait to go into because she has worked so long as an attorney, but has been working with cannabis for over 25 years and in healing different aspects of her being, as well as complex PTSD. And now she is a steward of this medicine, a steward for cannabis. And I've been, I've had the honor of guiding Kate in some of my Breathe Cannabis circles. And that's how I got to know her. And I'm just so grateful that we now are sitting together in this virtual space, having this conversation, this very much needed conversation on the 15th of November, which is like a season of change and composting and calming down and relaxing and resting and coming into stillness and introspection. And I just feel like the timing of this conversation is truly divine. So welcome, Kate. We are so excited to have you here.
Yay. Thank you so much to both of you. I am so just blessed and privileged and honored to be sitting here with you today.
So as Sam and I always like to start, we always like to start at the beginning. And, behind every person that I feel like has stepped into this work of service, there's always this backstory that I feel like informs the work that they're doing now. And so we'd love to just throw it over to you to just begin where you feel like the beginning is of your story with cannabis.
Yeah. So, for me, it's really been a lifelong journey. I've been a regular cannabis user for 25 years. I started when I was 15. I mean, I think my journey starts when I was 15, the first time that I used it, and I just knew that I loved it. I knew, I couldn't put the words to it, but thinking back, it made me feel more like myself. It just allowed me to sort of drop a facade and connect with people really authentically. And that's still what it does for me. That's still one of its primary medicines for me. And, throughout my life, I've used it, but I also, it was very separate from my work. I was not out about it in my work. And keep in mind, when I was 15, that was 1995. That was a different time and place. I'm 42 now. So, but
the war
I've
on
always
drugs,
used it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And all the messaging that we had, and my little group and my cohort all loved and used cannabis, and all knew that it was this great medicine, and it wasn't, the terrible things that we've heard about. It was just this nice, gentle medicine. But the larger world was not really ready for that message, and I think is still acclimating to it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up, by the way?
In Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I'm always so curious because I feel like the medicine around at that time, I was in college in Austin, and it was not what it is today. It was like, like little, it just felt like, what do you call it? Like, not scratch, like shake. It felt like
Swag.
it was, it
Yeah.
was like all dry and not great, but that was all we had.
Exactly. I mean, I joke about it now because there were no terpene profiles,
No.
in 1995.
Right.
It was one thing. You had it or you didn't. Those were the two categories.
Exactly.
It was like nobody knew what strain they had. Nobody knew what the product was. They were like, okay.
No, but you did kind of feel like you did notice that sometimes, I did at least, sometimes it made me feel different ways. Sometimes I did feel that sedated kind of couch lock, more the stoned feeling. And sometimes I felt really uplifted and bubbly, and I had no idea why.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know the variation in the plant, and we can really, with, pretty much pinpoint accuracy, get the experience that you want. But then it was really it was an adventure every time.
Yeah.
um, but I still loved it. I mean, I still really felt a connection to it, and really continuously used it. And coinciding with that, I really had a very traumatic childhood, and I didn't understand until very recently that I had a lot of nervous system dysregulation as a result of that. I got diagnosed with complex PTSD probably within the last 6 months, but I've been living with it for 20 years. I just didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's a real bummer. But a lot of a lot of people with complex PTSD, just to real quick explain what that means is, and
Hmm.
sort of how it is different from sort of a classic PTSD. Is in a classic PTSD, there's sort of one defining event that is traumatic. It might be a car wreck, it might be a tour of duty at war, it might be whatever it is, some sort of assault. And there's sort of clearly you before and there's you after. And the you after is experiencing,
Mm.
hypervigilance and nightmares and flashbacks and all of that stuff. With complex PTSD, it's the trauma is year after year after year after year. And it often begins when you're a child, before you have a real sense of who you are. And so I was living with this nervous system dysregulation, and I thought that was me. I thought it was flaws in my character, that I would wake up every single night thinking someone was breaking in, and that I was just constantly on high alert. And then I had the same nightmare, 4 times a week for 20 years. I didn't I just didn't. I thought it was me. So, and that's why
Hmm.
complex PTSD often goes undiagnosed until much later in life. So, to anybody out there listening, I offer this is just to, if you had trauma in your early years, and especially if you haven't been addressing it, but it's something what I said resonates with you in terms of that state of hypervigilance, intrusive thoughts, all of those things, look into it, do some Googling, do some, ask an MD, ask your therapist if you have one. Because getting that diagnosis from you was so freeing, because
Wow.
one, I knew it wasn't my fault. It was
Right.
purely a physiological response to my environment. But two, then I knew what I was dealing with, right? I knew that if my nervous system had been running the show, now it was my chance to get in there and regulate it.
Right. That's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah, it is so
Hmm.
liberating. And I find that
Hmm.
like I think more so many I'm actually currently learning a lot about trauma through this transpersonal energy healing certification course I'm taking. And
Hmm.
so they're really taking us through what does trauma look like? What does it do to the nervous system through all these
Yeah.
different types of systems and ways of understanding it. So I so appreciate you just taking the time to explain CPTSD because I feel like a lot of us do have that because so many of us have like childhood developmental trauma, and it's not these intense things like you would think, like assault or rape or that kind of thing. It is growing up with a parent that's not regulated or
Hmm.
things like that. And so yeah, thank you. This
Hmm.
is why this work is so important.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's why I think I think is why cannabis works really well. You hear a lot about it with veterans with PTSD, and the VA is doing some research into cannabis. Anecdotally, veterans have had a lot of luck with it. My guess, living with a very similar diagnosis, is it allows you to snap into the present moment. I mean, for me, cannabis is my present moment potion. When I take it, I can get out of the tape loop that's constantly whirring in my mind, and I get into the present moment. And my Wellbutrin doesn't do that. My
Right.
these other modalities don't do that, right? And so that's what it does for me today. That's what it's always done for me. That's the relief that it's given me. I only have been able to articulate and connect those dots recently, but I do really strongly feel that that's what it's always done for me.
Wow.
Uh, so yeah, but so part of the environment that I came in, grew up in, I became a perfectionist. I became an overachiever. I became a doer. Really. Looking back, sought validation, external validation. for my intellect. That's how I made my choices. And no one really stopped to ask me what I liked to do or who I was, right? And so I was a biology major in college, which I did love. I do love science, but it was more to have like the pre-med label. I'm being
Mm.
very honest with you guys here. This is what it was
This
though
you're
for me. It
speaking my
really, really
story,
was.
Kate.
I know.
Yeah.
I love it.
I so relate to everything you're just saying.
Good. So then I went into law school, thinking I was gonna, work with reproductive rights, and did a little bit of that volunteer wise and with some jobs. And anyway, a set of circumstances put me into a job in 2008. I graduated in 2008 from law school, right before the bottom fell out of the economy. So the job that I got was kind of the job I stuck with for a while because I was really happy to be there. But and it was just not work that I loved or was aligned with, but I had a job. The employer was good, all of those things. So I kind of just stuck with it. And again, I thought that was success, right? I was like, great, I'm a
Right.
lawyer. I can say to people, I'm a lawyer, right? And that's what
Yeah.
made me feel good. And so I did that for 15 years, just about, until this past winter. I just reached really a level of burnout that I had never felt before. So, one was that I was now an attorney for the largest hospital system in the state during the pandemic. And
Mm.
it was just hard. It was hard on everyone. It was just a very grim environment to work in. Everyone there was wonderful. I mean, it was an incredible organization, but it was hard. It was hard. And I
Yeah.
had a kindergartner at home doing remote kindergarten while I worked. It was the whole nine. And, I just increasingly was feeling really out of alignment with my work, such that I was spending every day in a dissociative state. I was spending every day uh, floating above myself, watching a version of myself pretend to care, pretend to, saying these words. And, especially through WebEx, boy, does that get exhausting. It was
Yeah.
just really hard. Um, so, you know, I've wanted to do something with cannabis for a long time. And I kind of had fits and starts of doing different things in the industry. But then when I saw cannabis coaching as an avenue, um, it was like my life, kind of crystallized before my eyes. I was like, this I can do. I love talking about the plant. I love helping people understand it and using it intentionally to help, support their wellness. And that's really what it is. And I was like, yes, okay, let's do this. So I got my education, certified cannabis educator and certified cannabis and health coach through the Cannabis Coaching Institute.
Mm.
Huge shout out to them, incredible organization. And I got a really, really excellent education through them. Um, and sort of went through a dark night of the soul, which we can talk about in detail if you would like, but eventually quit being an attorney and started and worked and created and built Your Kush Coach, which is my cannabis education and coaching business just this summer. I've been open since August. So, and now here I am on Woo New.
Wow. Congratulations, by the way.
Seriously,
That's
yeah.
huge. That's so huge. And I thank you so much for sharing that because, that dark night of the soul journey is really something that I know Ellen and I can empathize with, and we really relate to it. And it's so important, I think, to talk about for everyone right now because there are so many situations where we find ourselves in this place of our identity is wrapped up in our careers and we're checking all the boxes and doing all the things, not realizing we have so much healing to do and
Yeah.
that our journeys are going to take us in such a different direction once we're ready to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
hmm hmm And it's scary, right? I mean, you've got your critter brain that's saying if you change anything, everything's going to fall apart, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Yeah.
So you really have to, and honestly, the Cannabis Coaching Institute, huge shout out to they have a big mindset piece. They have cannabis education, but mindset is a huge part of the curriculum. And so really they have really helped us work through that and parse, what's true, what's mine, what's not, all of that. And that work is hugely important. Hopefully you have a guide like a mindset coach. And if you don't, there's resources that you can access for free that really help you through those prompts. And for me, I had to have a plan. I'm a very concrete, organized, type A person. And so I just thought, well, uh, I'm going to put a little savings account for the, for the time where I'm starting my business and not having an income. And I'm going to get all my continuing legal education set up. I mean, check all the boxes so that the day that I actually quit, I'm actually really ready. That was my approach. Now, not everybody has to take that, but
Mhm.
it was possible. I felt comfortable because I had really the facts and the data and the numbers and the yes, this will work type of plan set up before I took that leap. But it really still was a leap of faith. It still was, I've got 2 kids and a house to pay for and you know what I mean, all the things. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's still a leap. But I just knew that I had to do it. I knew that this is what I love to do, and this is what I'll naturally find success and joy and alignment um, through it. And be the person that I want to be. I was showing up to the world, to my friends, to my husband, to my children in this stressed out lawyer way, and I don't want to
Yeah.
do that, right? So
Right.
that was really important to me too, to be just really living in a joyful manner.
You know, what I find so interesting about your story is that, like, on one hand, you're working directly with cannabis in healing your body and your trauma
Hmm.
and regulating your nervous system and learning the tools to regulate your nervous system. And
Hmm.
this program, like stepping into the dark night of the soul to become a steward for cannabis, is
Hmm.
healing so much of the societal programming that has
Yes.
kept you like imprisoned essentially
Yes.
your whole life, so it's like happening on
Yes.
so many levels that
Yes.
it's just kind of like total shout out to cannabis for that purpose too.
Right. I
It's
love
Yes.
that.
Yes. And you do, it's almost, and I think too, I use cannabis for meditation a lot.
Mm,
It really helps me, and for yoga. It really helps me get, again, in that present moment in my body, and really able to shut out the noise. And so, when you're using it that way and when you're using it for meditation, it allows you to open up channels to receive those messages. One of the mentors at Cannabis Coaching Institute says, use it for problem solving. Use meditation for problem
nice.
solving, and that
Mm,
really resonated with me. You don't have to force it, but you allow it. And whatever
Yes.
tools, breathing, cannabis, whatever your tools are that allow you to open those channels, I think we should allow ourselves to use. And that's part of what excites me about, again, being a steward of this plant is telling people this is what you can use it for, is this gentle, supportive way.
yes. What I love so much too is Ellen was the one actually who really opened my eyes to how cannabis really can be used as such a potent medicine and such a potent guide. I had never really, like, I always enjoyed it and liked it, but I never had experienced it as a way to journey deeper and to receive more insights. But
Mm,
since I've had that experience, it's been totally life changing. It's been a huge game changer on my journey with my own healing, with my ability to connect to the universal powers. I mean, it's
Mhm.
such a special gift that you're sharing
yeah.
with the world, because it's like, I know, had I not had that experience with Ellen, or had I not had the opportunity to meet someone like you, like, that would not have been a tool that I ever would have had access to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's so
Are
much
you, is it,
stigma.
yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Is it, if for you, was it that stigma? Was it the sort of what we've been told about it, or what has been
I
for
never
you?
had, like, I never had I never was really worried about the stigma of using it necessarily. I know that it, for a lack of a better word, it really helped soothe me,
Yeah.
Hmm.
especially when I was using it and I was working in the corporate world, and I was so, like, I was very detached from my body.
Hmm.
I was there were a lot of things that I needed to heal, and this, like, chronic stress and anxiety that I was experiencing, cannabis really helped sort of carry me through that and soothe me. But I never had the understanding of how it is such a potent guide and such a potent medicine in
Mm,
a
Yes.
in a deeper way until
Yeah.
mm,
these experiences with Ellen.
Yeah. And Ellen, I think it's so wonderful. You've got the breathe sessions, with cannabis, you've got breathe sessions without. And so everyone can choose what fits for them. And I've done both, and they're both
mm.
beautiful experiences. But I do think there's something to it, to having that cannabis guide and helping you journey deeper. And it is, in some ways, you can think of it as a very, very, very mild psychedelic. You get to somewhat
Mhm.
of the, um, I don't know how to put this, but it's still uh,
The
reality, but it's a little
psychoactive?
elevated. Yeah, I mean, but
Yeah.
you're there, you're at the place. I call it the place, and I don't
Yeah.
know.
I love that, yeah. I call it the
Yeah.
quantum space, like the quantum
I
Okay.
love
reality,
that.
yeah.
What I love too about using cannabis as a psychedelic journey guide almost, or journey medicine, is that there's this agency with the journey that you
Mhm.
can sort of
Mhm,
like engage with the medicine in a way that you like, you're very present with it and you can sort of like navigate with it,
mhm,
um,
Yeah.
mhm.
which is so unique in my experience to psychedelic medicine.
I think the other thing too that's really beautiful is like what I always say is can alcohol helps you check out, cannabis helps you check in, and
Yeah.
that's I kind of also I think brewing here in this conversation is it helps you check in terms of that soothing and that present moment awareness. But I think also when you're journeying and trying to have open up these channels, it does help you check in, and that's I think a message that I want people to hear because I think we think of it as a drug, you
Right.
know, air
Hmm.
quotes, but that makes you just numb. And that is not what it is at all. And so that's a big misconception that I really want people to kind of be open to hearing is that it helps you check in.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you typically work with the people that you're guiding and coaching right now? Are they coming to you for like more physical kind of things, or is it emotional? I mean, I know the emotional body and the
Hmm.
physical body are completely
Hmm.
connected, but I'm curious, like,
Hmm.
what the entry point or what the doorway is for most
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. So one of the services that I offer is called a personal cannabis consultation. And it's really to help people figure out what cannabis products in what doses and what timing is going to be best for them based on their goals, based on what they're coming to me for. And those clients have had a range of issues. Some are anxiety, some have had physical symptoms like arthritis or things like that. ADHD, mood, a huge variety of things. And some are just curious, and that's fine too. Um, and one of my clients wanted to use it as a alternative to alcohol. How do I weave this in? And it doesn't need to be a wholesale change in your life. Much like make a few meals a week plant based, right? You can make a few drinks a week, cannabis instead, or something like that. But so people come with a really big variety. Of issues and of experience and a lot of what we talk about in the intake is sort of what have you used before, what's worked, what hasn't. It really helps me get an idea of what might work for them in the future. So it's been a big variety, but I think too, as cannabis becomes legalized and more broadly accepted, um, plain old curiosity, I think might be
Yeah.
more, might be coming to me a little bit more. I think which is perfectly fine. I mean, I use it as a social tool as much as anything else. It can be that's medicine in and of itself, right? If you have anxiety, acute
Totally.
anxiety like I do, that is medicine. So I think really reframing how broadly we can think about it is useful.
Can you describe a little bit of, I'm curious about like, there's so many people, and I would put myself in this camp too, that would probably smoke recreationally or socially
Hmm.
to curb the social anxiety, just
Hmm.
Hmm.
being with a lot of people in a space, especially when
Hmm.
you're more introverted or a little bit more sensitive to energy.
Hmm.
How do you engage with cannabis with people like me that have a little bit of that social anxiety?
Hmm. So knowing how it's going to affect you is key here because if you
Mhm.
get the kind of cannabis that makes you mute, which has
Uh-huh.
happened to me many, many times, that might not be the best one for that environment, right? You really probably want the one that's euphoric and uplifting and you get bubbly, almost like a little champagne. That's probably the best medicine for you in that case. So, what I suggest to people is experimenting a little bit on their own or in a little, a different setting. It is set and setting. It's set and setting just like probably anything that we consume, certainly like psychedelics. You really have to understand your setting and work the medicine that way. So a lot of times I recommend if we're talking about smoking, um, maybe buying 3 different strains, talk to your
Mm.
bud tender. We can get into the strain name dilemma and all of that, and I would like to talk about that, but talk to your bud tender at a place that you trust and just say, "Here's how I'd like to feel." They usually know what they carry. Now, it might not match if they call it sativa or indica or what hash bubble, kush double bubble, it doesn't really matter. They know they know what they have. And so you can say, "Hey, I'd like something that makes me feel a little socially engaged," or I want something to make me feel really calm so I can watch a movie and have a nice body couch lock, they call it, a nice body feel, nice body relaxation. They usually know what they carry and then just kind of play around with it. I tell my clients to track. So rate your symptoms 0 to 5 and say what you took and when you took it. And then when it's had a chance to take effect, write down how you feel. It can be any old journal. You can buy beautiful cannabis journals from Gold Leaf, but you can also just use any old notebook laying around. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to spend money on it. Because that's the way that you're going to get to know them. And for me, I have any number of strains in my house at a given time. I know them like I know my own children. I
I love
really
that.
know how they'll make me feel. So I know which one to reach for in which setting. So that's what I would suggest.
That's awesome. As you're working with different people, do you find, because you are like, I'd love to kind of get into like the terpene profiles and things like
Hmm.
that, and
Yeah.
just like kind of
Hmm.
almost understanding beyond, like, I think even like knowing that there's sativa strains, indica strains, and hybrid strains, I think already is kind of like one threshold for people to realize. But
Hmm.
even beyond that, like the terpene profiles,
Hmm.
which to me it sounds like, and what I've been told is that it's even more important than what people would classify as like sativa, indica, hybrid.
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I heard it said once, and I still think this is the best way to put it, that THC or CBD, um, puts the wind in the sails, but the terpenes actually steer the ship. So they're
Mm.
going to be more important to the way that your experience manifests than the THC percentage will be.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah. So in broadly, there are well, we're not the numbers. We're not totally sure how many terpenes are in a cannabis plant at any given time, but 100, let's say.
Mhm.
And there are terpenes that are calming. So linalool is a terpene that also can be found in lavender, and it gives it that relaxing, sedating kind of aroma. When you buy a strain of cannabis that has linalool, it tends to be on that sedating, relaxing side. And similarly, with uh, limonene is in citrus fruits, and that's the uplifting, kind of euphoric feeling. And there's lots of them in between. There's beta caryophyllene is really helpful for anxiety. There's many, 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 and they interplay, right? There's this entourage effect where the plant, all of these together are working in this synergistic way so that they're sort of more than the sum of their parts. They all work better
Mm.
together than separately. You can't isolate one of the compounds and have it work better than the symphony together. The other piece is, let's talk about sativa indica hybrid. So the problem with that classification is that it's not based, well, it was never based on how the plant makes you feel. It was based on sort of morphological differences, what the plant looks like.
Oh,
It
interesting.
never, yeah, it doesn't really map to it, but there is sort of a kernel. So, and for people who have don't know what it is, in dispensaries, you'll see products labeled as sativa as sort of that uplifting, euphoric, indica as the couch is how you can remember it, and hybrid is the middle.
That's that I've never
um,
heard that before. That's awesome.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's so good. But the problem is really where we are today is that they're all hybrids. They really are all hybrids. And so you can't really classify things that way. There is still a kernel of truth underlying it, which is the plant itself does run that spectrum. So, but they don't fit neatly into the sativa indica hybrid are just not a scientific distinction for it. The reason that it's sort of useful still to know it though is because that's how products are marketed in corporate cannabis. That's just how they're marketed. And so there can be nuggets of truth in there, right? They can take their more sedating product and label it indica, but it's not always a one-to-one. So there's still, I want everybody to just sort of take it with a grain of salt and still experiment with what works for them. um
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that because I have had so many experiences where I'm like, oh my gosh, I am looking at the label on some of these strains and I'm like, this says it's a sativa. And I feel like my body just melts into the ground when I smoke it.
Hmm. Well, and let me add on a layer of complexity is that the reason that cannabis works is it interacts with your endocannabinoid system in your body, which is designed to maintain balance, homeostasis in your body. But
Mm.
every mammal has an ECS. That's why CBD can work on your dog. Um, Everybody's endocannabinoid system is slightly different. So you and I could take exactly the same strain and have different experiences. And there's no right or
Yeah.
wrong. It's just how it affects you.
Right.
Um, Also take into account that your ECS endocannabinoid system fluctuates throughout the year. And for women, it fluctuates throughout your menstrual cycle because
Mm.
it's interacting with your endocrine system, right? Which is, you picture the rise and fall of those hormones, and the ECS is trying to keep those things in balance. So there are just complexities to it that really all boil down to at the end of the day to find what works for you. There's not a right and a wrong. There's only a right for you. There's only a way that it makes you feel. And so if you were tracking, Sam, you would say like, hey, this thing was this product called this, but it made me feel that way. And you just keep taking notes on that and keep figuring out once you find the thing that works for you, then maybe keep following that path. But I think um, it's really a personal journey.
Yeah. So I actually have one more quick question about that
Mhm.
because this is like so fascinating.
Yeah,
Um,
truly.
it's so interesting because I feel like whenever I go into a dispensary, um, and I know that like the salespeople who are there, they're meant to like help answer all these questions and stuff. But I feel like quite often they're really pushing these premium strains that have super high THC and the CBD is
Mhm.
all stripped out, which I
Mhm.
feel like really doesn't lend itself to the as many healing properties as there could be. And so often I
Mhm.
feel like I'm asking for like, no, I just want, something that even quite sometimes is outdoor grown, has lower percentages of THC, but also has some
Mhm.
CBD in it. And that is really hard to find.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering like what are your thoughts around like those super high expensive premium strains and versus something that is a little bit less expensive, but and also taking into account obviously that everybody's bodies are going to interact with these medicines differently.
Right.
Mhm. I'm so glad you brought this up because I do think this is a real issue. So in the plant, in nature, in landrace strains, CBD and THC existed in much lower percentages and much more equal percentages to each other than what we have today.
Right.
So, as sort of breeding went underground due to prohibition, everyone thought, well, we got to ratchet up this THC through selective breeding, not through GMO or anything, but through selective breeding, we've ratcheted up the THC and we've dropped the CBD. That's not really what the plant should be, which is exactly what you're saying. So, and I think, 15% THC is what I think feels natural to a lot of people. It's sold at 28%, 27%.
Right.
That's really high for a lot of people. So there's a couple of things you can do. Is one is the pendulum is swinging back a little bit, I will say, to having strains that are a bit more balanced and have some CBD. I think don't be afraid to ask for a lower percentage THC strain. That's perfectly fine. I also think what I do personally is buy CBD flower. I buy hemp flower and I mix it in. So I
That's what
take,
I started doing. Oh my God, that's
oh,
so interesting.
good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, great.
Yeah, I found the experience was light years different.
Oh,
Yes,
so you're manually balancing out the THC,
yes.
CBD.
Yes.
Like,
And I
oh,
often do
wow.
it where it's like a sprinkle of THC. For me, I probably do a 3-to-1 CBD to THC or, whatever, you play around with it for what works for you and what your setting is and all of that. 1-to-1 is sometimes great. But yeah, I buy hemp flower. I love Tweedle Farms is a place that I source from in Oregon. It's a family owned organic hemp farm in Oregon that can ship to your door, and they've got really high quality CBD at reasonable prices, and I love them. But you can find it from anywhere, and it's yeah, you mix it in CBG flower too. We haven't talked about the other cannabinoids, but
Yeah. I've seen
CBG
that
flower. Hmm.
on labels before, and my brother-in-law actually was like asking me what that is. I was like, dude, I wish I could tell you. I have no idea.
The funniest, I make homemade edibles just for my own use, and I made CBG ones. My husband was giving some to his buddy, and he's like, and the buddy was like, "What's CBG?" And Adam says, "It's like D, but it's G." That's not, from a cannabis coach perspective, that's not quite right. But, so CBG is another cannabinoid. What's super interesting about it is we call it the mother cannabinoid because it's actually the precursor. All cannabinoids start as CBG and then morph
Oh,
into whatever else they're going to become.
Wow.
So, yeah, so it has that sort of potent stem cell, if you will, magic to it. It has all of the things in it. So it's a really beautiful medicine. And a lot of people find, and it's still non-intoxicating. So CBD and CBG and essentially everything but THC are non-impairing, non-intoxicating, right? We still kind of call them psychoactive because they still can provide a calm, they still could calm your anxiety, but they really are more of a body feel, and a non-impairing cannabinoid. So CBG often does for people what CBD sort of should have but never has. A lot of people find luck with CBG instead.
oh,
And you can
wow.
find it in drops, you can find it in edibles, you can find it in flour. And I make like multi-cannabinoid edibles where they've got CBD, CBG, and THC. Uh,
Mm.
and those are really nice because they have, you kind of get everything. So play
Wow.
around with it too. I mean, have fun. Like that's the other piece is like, we call it serious medicine, but we don't have to be so serious all the time. You can have fun, you can experiment, you can say, yeah, this makes me feel good. So that's
That's
what
the
I do.
That's like the beauty of all of this, right? I love that you brought up the fact that it's everybody's personal journey because I feel like it brings agency back into the individual to actually get curious and explore for themselves what is working versus
Mhm.
asking, a system to formulaically tell them what is wrong and what they need to do from a pharmaceutical perspective. Um,
Mhm.
I'm also curious, like, do you work with CBN?
So CBN is interesting. That's one of the cannabinoids that doesn't actually, it's not grown in the plant. It's when THC breaks down, it breaks down into CBN. So
Oh,
yeah, and in CBN they call it like the sleepy time cannabinoid because it really
yeah.
does it's really, really good for sleep. So if you're looking for something that supports sleep, CBN is great. You can't really buy CBN flower. You could buy CBN in edible form. I don't know if they're using, old weed with old THC that's broken down. I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
Not sure, but it is really, really good for sleep support.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes I
Oh
might
my
have to
gosh, I'm
like
learning
give
so
this to my
much.
brother. Yeah.
Yeah, I had never even heard of CBN before, so like my mind is so blown right now.
I was given a tincture of CBN when I was trained to do psychedelic cannabis journeys. So I bought a bottle of CBN because it was kind of taught to us that if somebody's having a really overly activated experience, and let's say they're starting to get the paranoia coming in and
Hmm.
they're feeling like they're in danger, the CBN will counteract that, kind of like, what you would imagine CBD to do. But
Hmm.
that's how we were taught, like, use the CBN to just sort of like, yeah, calm them down, bring some calm and peace into the body.
Hmm. It could. I mean, CBD is recommended for that as well. So I think again, whatever works for that individual in the moment. Also, sniffing peppercorns
Oh,
What?
is a little
Whoa.
tip. Yeah. Yep. And what's interesting is that beta caryophyllene, the terpene that sort of, anecdotally is really helping with anxiety, is contained in pepper. So, you know, makes some
Wow.
sense that there's a tie
wow.
there. So much of
Huh.
this too, you guys, is like
Fascinating.
it's all emerging science, right? So because of prohibition, there's been studies on, very basic safety and efficacy, but the level of detail that we're talking about is still that's emerging research and in what each cannabinoid can do. The reason you hear about like a new cannabinoid every day is because now, research is really isolating what they'll do and what they're best for and all of that. So it's really exciting. It's a super exciting time for cannabis and to be paying attention to cannabis and be curious about how it works because, um, the more we learn, the more we can really help fine tune and support your experience.
Mm, I love that so much. And you're just kind of opening us up. I mean, we knew that it was a versatile and very like, it's like the exploration is endless seemingly, and the
Hmm.
ways in which you can use cannabis and bring it into your life seems to be like literally endless too.
Hmm.
So thank you for that perspective shift. It's like you're literally like busting open the doors even wider. Um,
Hmm.
I think as we're having this conversation too, like right smack dab in the middle of November, in this seasonal change of like, we're coming back down into this place of rest, into this place of stillness, and kind of going into that healing and very, very restful time of our lives. If you live according to the seasons and sort of the way that nature is kind of guiding us. I'm curious how we can work with cannabis to support that rest as well.
Mm-hmm. I love this question. This is a really joyful question for me to ask. It's such an Ellen question, if I may, because it's just like on this deeper level of, really, I think it also inherently kind of regards cannabis as an aid, as a supporter, as a nurturer, and I really love that view of it. And I also just love this bringing rest in. And I think just if we can take a step back, just all feeling into this rest being sort of in the zeitgeist, we're all feeling that we need it. We're all giving ourselves permission. We've got Trisha Hersey's book, Rest is Resistance, and all of these things, in season, et cetera, et cetera. I love just this feeling that we're allowing ourselves to rest. And I do think that cannabis can be hugely supportive in that. And again, I think it comes down to knowing your strain, knowing how different products make you feel. We sort of talked about the ways in which you can play around with strain if you're going to be smoking. I think, again, try 3 different kinds. Buy the smallest amount. Also, Sam, I didn't quite get to this, but don't let the salespeople pressure you into buying the most expensive stuff. Just like you wouldn't anywhere.
Thank you for saying that, because it is a real thing when people go in. With that experience is very real in a dispensary.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it touches on, just sort of quick tangent, it touches on a fact that like bud tenders are doing the best they can, but there's no like bud tender 101. And there's no like set of education that they all have to rely on. So they all have different amounts of knowledge. And sometimes when people have less knowledge, all they can point to is the price point and know that they want to push that. And so it's really, there's just, we're at a point in the industry where you really, as a consumer, have to go in knowing, armed with information,
Right.
So, and advocate for yourself. Think of it like going to the doctor, where you have to already have done all your research. You know what you have. You go in and advocate for yourself instead of getting checked out. But back to the question. So I think for rest and support, I think trying to find a more sort of sedating, one of those couch lock strains really allows your body to rest. A lot of times when people feel couch lock, it's the cannabis is working as medicine to be really forcing you into the rest that your body needs. It helps you slow down. It gives you that couch lock because that's what you need. So I think allowing that and, trying the few different strains and seeing how you feel, trying them sort of in that indoor setting. I also think CBD and CBG are hugely beneficial for that. And you can mix them in, you can take them on their own. A lot of times I just smoke CBD and CBG flower mixed, see if that's supportive to you and that calms you down, in the right amount. For people, we haven't talked much about edibles, but I do want to talk about that because I think with respect to this question, it's really important. Edibles, so there's pros and cons to every form factor. Edibles, their benefit is that they're really long lasting medicine, right? It can be 4 to 6 hours of feeling a certain way. Boy, the flip side of that coin
is then you're on that ride.
Exactly. And it can take, an hour to sometimes 2 hours to kick in. And so people make this the number one mistake. So the number one mantra is start low and go slow. Start low means start with a low dose. Go slow means really wait for that dose to kick in. But what happens is you get impatient. It's been an hour and a half of feeling this way. You take more, they're all, now you've got double the dose flowing in your system. So I think the real key with making edibles work for you, especially in a gentle, supportive way, is to really, truly follow the mantra, start low and go slow. So edibles are typically sold in a 10 milligram amount, but that's a lot for a beginner. And it's even a lot for a seasoned user like me. So don't be afraid to cut that guy up into 4. Start with 2.5 milligrams. That's my suggested starting dose, up to 5. And start there.
I would thank you for saying that too, because
Yeah.
I again was talking to my brother-in-law about this because he has these 10 milligram edibles, and I'm like, the edibles hit me so differently. Like the
Hmm.
Me too.
effects um, of the THC are just so much more intense when I
Hmm.
take an edible. So I go so small. I'm like, I'll take a little nibble. And I'm like always making him split them with me. I'm like, no, I don't want that whole thing. Like that's gonna pummel me all night.
Yeah, right. And you don't want to be pummeled. And this is the problem, I think, with them being sold in 10 milligram amounts is that you have that experience once. You're like, yeah, this isn't for me. Like
Right.
it's easy to dismiss it because you didn't like how you felt. But the problem was, somebody gave you a whole bottle of wine at first, or you know what I mean?
Right,
And
exactly.
so of
Right.
course you don't like how you feel. So I think, yeah, start with 2.5 grams. The other piece, Sam, that you touched on, there's actually some real science behind what happened to you and why it makes you feel that way in your body when you inhale THC through smoke. It's delta 9 THC, and it's a fat soluble version. When you digest it via an edible, it goes through your digestive tract. It's broken up in your body and through your liver into a much smaller water soluble uh, form called 11 hydroxy THC, but it's tiny, so it crosses the blood brain barrier much more quickly, and that's why it's so much more potent and packs so much more of a punch. So it's not just you. It really is. There is a science to why edibles really hit hard, and I
Wow.
think that, yeah. So I think that really makes it. There's absolutely no shame in the game of having 2 milligrams, 2.5 milligrams, and some products are now dosed that way. So like 1906 is a really wonderful brand I love that has microdosed edibles that are 2.5 milligrams. You can start looking for that, and I think be empowered to understand your dose. And if it's small, that's okay. I mean, there is sort of a cannabis subculture of like, get as high as you can and shoot for the
Right.
moon. And like, more power to you if that's you. I'm not here to interfere with that at all. But there's absolutely also no shame in taking 2 milligrams at a time.
Thank you for saying that out loud. I feel like I'm on the same boat as Sam where I'm like, I think they're called wild gummies,
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
edibles. They taste amazing. I love them to
Hmm.
death, but I think each one, I think you're right, it is 10. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I feel like I have to take half a gummy each time
Hmm.
I do that because, yeah, one just takes me out too
Well, it
much.
Yeah.
makes so much sense. I'm so glad that I'm not the only one who thinks that edibles are like so much more powerful because
Oh, God. Yeah.
I was like, listen, use cannabis regularly and like, whoa, I cannot hang.
Hmm.
Yeah, totally.
Hmm.
Totally. This is like, oh my gosh, the information that you're giving us is so exciting to me. And there's just, literally, I feel like we could talk and just make this entire podcast just about this and like just keep on
Hmm.
going forever and we would never run out of material. Um, I am really excited, like, to potentially do like a workshop with you for our listeners where we can
Hmm.
bring you in and
Yay.
you can do like, kind of teaching us, maybe we'll talk about this offline. But yeah, I'm so
Hmm.
excited about the possibilities of like being able to educate all of us because it is such a powerful medicine and we just need to be educated. We just need to learn kind of how to engage with it.
Hmm.
And I think what you're doing is just so needed, so beautiful, so needed. Um, and as somebody who has like a family member who's dealing right now with a lot of intense anxiety and insomnia, I literally just bought 2 tinctures and sent it over to them, and I'm hoping that the tinctures work over their sleep meds. But
Hmm.
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I have one more question. Sorry, Elle, you
Hmm.
just like,
Yeah, yeah.
you prompted this in my mind. Like, because I have, I have some family members who avoid cannabis like the plague because every experience they've ever had with it has actually induced anxiety.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm curious, do you think that that's typically a dosage issue?
I do. I do. I mean, typically it's a high THC dose that causes that paranoia and that anxiety. So you can temper that in a lot of the ways that we've already talked about.
Right.
Um, and I think really introducing CBD into that mix is probably the best way.
Mhm.
Um, just really quick on tinctures too. We didn't talk about them, but they're a really nice way too. And there's sort of a middle ground between an edible and smoking because you put it under your tongue, so it enters your body through capillary action under your tongue versus through your digestive tract. So not as much of it gets broken down
Oh,
into that tiny little 11 hydroxy. So, so for people who really want to avoid smoking, tinctures can be a nice middle ground.
I did
Um,
not realize that. I kind of put them in the edibles category, but
mhm.
thank you
They're
for
a
sharing
tweener.
that. Oh,
They're kind of a
cool.
tweener, but the longer you keep it under your tongue, the more that's absorbed that way.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I totally thought it's like, okay, you're ingesting it just like you would an edible, but it's actually a different um, receptor kind of
Hmm.
method.
Hmm.
Oh, cool.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, this this family member, like they have kids and stuff, and they're in a state where it's not legal, and all the things, and so I think
Hmm.
that hopefully the tinctures will work. But I have the highest hope that it'll do wonders for them.
Hmm.
Um, and we always love to ask this one last question. I mean, you've given us so much to think about and so much to like explore. So I cannot thank you enough. This is again such a timely conversation for me personally. So just so grateful. Um, but yeah, the question we always like to ask is, as you've obviously gone through so much to get to even this point of coming out as this cannabis coach, and really now guiding other people, and also in working with this beautiful medicine in your own healing. What is that one piece of wisdom that you hang your hat on and that you live by, that you feel is something you want to share with the audience?
Hmm. Um, for me, and because I love science so much, the fact that the cannabis plant works so beautifully with our endocannabinoid system, the molecules your body makes are identical to some of the molecules that the cannabis plant makes. Um, it really is here for us. It really is a plant that grows from the ground. So first, I think, let's decolonize our minds about it's a drug. It's a plant. It's a plant that grows from the ground. So I think that carrying that vision of it and carrying the fact that it works in harmony with our body, it's here for us. Or, sometimes I feel like we're here for it. We propagated her across the globe, right?
Yeah.
She's tricked us into propagating her across the globe. But really, that it's a gentle, nurturing plant that works with your body. And so, if you can view it in that way and invite it in that way and use it intentionally, it's here to support you.
Mm, thank you for that. I like the shifting in perspective on that. And yeah, there for me, even there was so much stigma that I had to work through, and I'm really grateful for the program that I went through, because the first layer was literally working through that stigma. And I think that stigma still exists in our world right now, and even though it's been legalized in a number of states, I think that it's still, there's still work there to be done. So again, just cannot thank you enough for stepping up in this way, and you know really taking that brave move to leave a very secure career behind in order to be a spokesperson and steward for this medicine, in the same way that I think Sam and I have been stepping in for the sacred mushroom. It's
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
so needed, and yeah, just cannot thank you enough.
Thank you both so much. It's been such an honor. I'm so excited and happy. I can't believe how fast this went.
I
Flew by.
Yeah,
know.
I
I could
know.
talk to you guys forever.
I know. I was
Seriously.
like, sign me up for that workshop. I'm
I know.
in.
I know. We'll just dominate. It'll just be the two of us asking question after
I
question.
know.
um, how can somebody reach you who is interested in working with you?
Uh, Reach out to me via my website, yourkushcoach.com. Kush, yourkushcoach.com. When Kush is a sort of slang word for cannabis, it really pays homage to where the Hindu Kush mountains in Afghanistan and India, where the first cannabis race strains were found. So, wanting to honor that as well. So yourkushcoach.com, and you can schedule a free call with me. You can schedule service. My email is on there. So reach out to me that way, please.
Amazing.
Oh,
Thank
this
you
is so
so
awesome.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to share this.
Yeah, me too. Music for Woo New is composed by Adam Miller.